The number of times people have spoken to me about the disadvantages of electric cars and why you shouldn't buy them, and these experts are telling me, in all honesty, you just can't buy electric cars; they're just no good. Blah blah blah. It all came to a head the other day when a salesman, a car salesman, who sells obviously petrol cars, went off his tree about electric cars and why they shouldn't buy them. He did say towards the end the problem is that the electric cars aren't sold through dealer networks. I think he's referring to BYD and Tesla, and therefore the dealers aren't making money out of it. I think that's really his reason. But anyway, he came up with 5 pretty passionate reasons why you shouldn't buy them. And I kind of wrote them down, and I asked him, would he do a YouTube video where I talked to him about it? Oh, no, I can't do that, mate. I'm on TV. No, I can't do that. I mean, people in my dealership will see me. Oh, fair enough. So what I did is I wrote down roughly what he said, and I got one of these cartoon characters, and that's no pun on him, and I got an AI voice to say the script and basically say what he said. And then and there was 5 things that he said that he brought up, which are fairly common. I've heard it quite a bit. So I thought I'd do a video and we'd say, okay, let's go look at these five issues that people bring up, and let's discuss it. I mean, it wasn't really a debate because I just said what I said. But anyway, so this is it. So there's 5 statements, and each one of them I say what I believe is correct. As an owner of an electric car, I can talk by experience, and I've talked to a lot of owners of electric, particularly BYD 803s owners, and I can get the feedback from them as well. So I think what I'm saying is pretty right. But anyway, being fair and balanced or whatever, have a look and see what you think. Actually, before we begin, I've got to tell you something funny. For the voiceover for the salesman, I use Chat GPT, which is an artificial, open source artificial intelligence bit of software. It does all sorts of things, can write text for you, do all sorts of things. What it will do is it will convert text into voice, and you can say what sort of voice you want. I want an Australian, I want a serious Australian accent. So a couple of the statements by the salesman I put in and said, can you convert this? It actually came back and said no, because it's incorrect, which was really good. So I had to actually say to it, and this is true, I had to say to it, look, this is a debate from 2 sides of the story, so I'm putting in there, I'm putting the other side, and this is what the other side is saying. I agree it's wrong. And then it would do it. So that's incredible. This artificial intelligence is amazing. But anyway, that's another story.
The battery in an electric car wears out and will need to be replaced, which costs thousands. The only solution is to throw the car away, as it is too expensive to replace the battery. On the other hand, replacing parts in a regular petrol car is inexpensive. You often see 20-year-old petrol vehicles still operating with over 400,000 kilometres on the clock.
It's very difficult to know where to begin. It is true that the early batteries in vehicles that did not have temperature management systems, particularly in hot climates, didn't fare too well, and the batteries were very expensive to replace. This is like, for example, the Nissan Leaf. It had no temperature control management system, and it did experience issues in hotter climates. The very first ones that came out in the UK are still going strong because it's colder climates. The other thing we have to really understand is that the battery technology has come a long way, and BYD, for example, are the leaders in. Well, I could argue that they're the leaders in battery technology. particularly if you use the criteria of how long they last and how many cycles you can have and how you can treat them. You know, the BYD batteries, you can go from 0 to 100% as many times as you like. BYD actually say that their batteries that are in the Atto 3 can cycle 3,000 times. Well, what does that mean? So you can charge them 3,000 times. Now that works out at, I did do the calculation somewhere, it works out at around 11 years. If you charge them every weekday for 11 years, it's 3,000 cycles. There is, BYD also say that they've got vehicles that are still running after 1.2 million kilometres. So it's not correct to say that, well, there's two things. First, it's not correct to say they don't last very long. They certainly last a long time. How much do they cost to replace at the end? So after you've done 1.2 million kilometres, or after 11 years of charging every day, you may have to upgrade the battery or get a new battery. How much do they cost? Who knows? Nobody's replacing them at the moment, so nobody really knows. And if you charge them, if you charge a battery once a week, as most people do, for 3,000 cycles, that would be 60 years. I don't know about you, but I don't think I'll be around in 60 years. I certainly won't be doing 1.2 million kilometres. So if electric cars are going to be compared to petrol cars, as far as the longevity goes, you've really got to look at the only part that you've got that does degrade over a long period of time is the battery. The motor just goes on and on and on. There's no wearing parts. There is moving parts because the whole thing's spinning, but there's no crankshaft, there's no pistons, there's no spark plugs, there's no radiator which has almost boiling water going through it all the time for years. I think the hottest the BYD radiator gets, I can't see it going past about 45 degrees, and that's kind of like a shower for me, or probably a bit cold shower actually. So, and you've got an incredible amount of moving parts in a motor, in an engine, and they do wear down such that over a period of time, the engine gets less powerful. Now that doesn't happen with an electric vehicle. The motor doesn't get less powerful on time. It's always got the same amount of horsepower. And sure, you can put, sure. I mean, there's a whole industry around renovating or replacing engines, gearboxes. That's the other thing. I mean, they've got gearboxes and diffs and all sorts of things that you need to run the system. I mean, I had a Merc that after 200,000 kilometres, my gearbox packed up and I had to replace it. I had to get an exchange for about $3,000. And talk about oil leaks. Even the expensive cars, the expensive, Mercedes, Jags, those things, they get oil leaks. You get oil leaks. They cost a fortune to repair. So I don't know where they come off with saying about electric vehicles. I mean, there's a whole industry around repairing motor cars. They're called motor mechanics. So I mean, you've all owned. Most of you have owned vehicles, and you've had radiator leaks. You've had overheating because of water getting out. You've had oil leaks, where you've had to replace the gaskets and head gaskets, and where do they get off? So I don't know what more I can say about that, but I think that the simplicity of an electric vehicle means that it's going to last an awful lot longer than than a petrol car. It's very difficult to argue because it's so obvious.
Charging an electric vehicle takes a long time, sometimes more than a day, especially if using a home charger. Petrol vehicles can be filled up in a few minutes. If you can find an available working fast charger, the cost is over the top. Electric vehicles are just not convenient.
The convenience of an electric vehicle depends on your individual situation. My situation is at home. I have a charger, a 32 amp charger, and it charges 10% of the battery in 1 hour. I do around 200 or 300 kilometres a week. So once a week, I put the vehicle on charge at about 8 o'clock at night, and when I wake up the next morning, it's fully charged. To me, that's really convenient. Now, other people who don't have a charger at home, when they go to the local shopping centres, such as up the road here at Pacific Fair, there's a lot of chargers up there. Some are free, some are very, very cheap, and you know, the Tesla ones or the more expensive ones up to 60 cents a kilowatt hour. Even at those rates, so it is convenient. If you go to a shopping centre and want to charge it up at a shopping centre, even if it's not, even if you can only charge, like, say, once a week or twice a week, and you have to go to a local fast charger, it's going to take about an hour, maybe a bit more, to charge it. But you know, it's not terribly inconvenient. You know, there's things you can do with a BYD. You can watch YouTube channels. You can watch this channel while you're charging. But it's, you know, then you look at the cost. So it cost me the equivalent of 1.5 litres per 100 paying for my electricity bill for my my battery usage. If you went to a Tesla, if you went to the Dira chargers that charge up to 60 cents a kilowatt hour, it's 3.5 litres per 100. Now, I think it's pretty convenient. Where it's not convenient, I would agree, is if you're doing more than 400 kilometres in a day, and the vehicle is always going, and it can't be off the road. You know, then it's a different ballpark. But if you've got charging at home and you know, and you sleep, then you can charge it while you're asleep. The only time I've been to a service station since I bought my car was because the screen popped up and said one of my tyres would get, you know, was 31 psi. So I had to go and fill up the air pressure. I haven't been to a service station since then. So I went by the frogs and the snakes and the chocolates, and so I lost a bit of weight. Anyway, also I've spoken to a lot of owners. As you probably know, I sell these frunks, and stuff. And sometimes the owners come and pick them up from my place, and we talk. I had one guy the other day. He was a student, and I asked him about his car. He said, "It's great. It doesn't cost me anything." I said, "How come?" He says, "Oh, well, I go to uni and I can charge it for free at uni." Oh, well, that's pretty good. Got another owner who has solar. He's off the grid. He's got solar in his house, and he charges his BYD from the solar power. But more than that, at night time, he runs his house off the BYD. So in the daytime he's charging his BYD, and in the night time his BYD is running his house, air conditioning, all sorts of stuff. I've got a video coming up on how that happens later, but so there's, you know, so I don't know what I can say. It's the more you go into these electric vehicles and the convenience of them, the more you absolutely are sold. So if you haven't bought one or you're thinking about it, really, really think about it.
Electric vehicles have a very limited driving range compared to gasoline vehicles. You cannot drive long distances without having many long delays while you recharge your battery. Often in the middle of a long trip, the charging station you rely on is faulty, and you have to wait hours or days for a breakdown service or tow truck. You would have to be crazy to risk a long trip in an electric vehicle.
I have to confess this was my major concern when I bought a car, because at least once a year I drive to Sydney. And every time I thought about buying an electric car, or told somebody I was thinking about buying an electric car, I'll say, oh, I don't know, how far can you go? How many stops would you need to go to Sydney? Because, some petrol cars, you can go from the Gold Coast to Sydney without filling up on one tank, particularly the diesel cars. Anyway, so I have a video out, and there's a list of all my videos down below. If you go below, there's a link that has a list of all my videos, and you can just click on the link and you can go to the video. But I've got a link for long-range driving strategies. Now, when you think about driving from here to Sydney without filling up, what you're saying is you're driving from here to Sydney without stopping. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't do that. I have to stop at least 2 or 3 times for a coffee or a can of Coke or a burger or some sandwiches or whatever. So on that strategy video, I did the Sydney to Gold Coast in 10.5 hours. 1.5 hours of which was filling up with electricity. But on each stop, we had either something to eat or a coffee. And as soon as we got served, it takes forever. As soon as we got served and ate and got up and went back, we didn't wait. We then just stopped charging and got into the car and drove. And we were refreshed. And it was probably the best trip from Sydney to Gold Coast I've ever had. The trip going down was a problem because we used the wrong strategy. We stopped and filled up to the top, and we had anxiety because we thought we were going to run out, all sorts of things. But have a look at the video. So I no longer think this is the problem. I don't think anyone needs to be concerned on long trips if they have the right attitude and I don't want to say follow my advice. It's not just my advice. This is what everybody recommends once they've been travelling long distance. So it's not just me, it's everybody. So have a look at that video.
Electric vehicles are very dangerous. The batteries often burst into flames. I would be very wary of traveling in an electric vehicle. In fact, the other day, an electric vehicle burst into flames at Sydney Airport, and 5 surrounding vehicles were written off. It took 2 hours to bring the fire under control.
I'm not going to spend much time on this because this is absolute rubbish. Just on the car at the airport, it wasn't a car. The battery was out of the car. I don't really know the details, but it certainly wasn't a car that was sitting there and suddenly blew up. There was some damage to the battery, or something happened to the battery. I don't know what it was. But without saying like I'm selling my videos, there is a link down below, as I previously said, that has all my videos, one of which is car fires, electric car fires. But what I will say is a couple of things. Firstly, an insurance company did some statistics in the States, one of the largest insurance companies in the United States, about car fires. The insurance company is called Auto Insurance EZ, Easy. And what they found was the number of fires per 100,000 car sales. Now, hybrid was number 1 at 3,474 fires per 100,000 cars sold. I'm looking up here. Petrol cars, $1,529 and 29 cars per 100,000. So hybrids are double petrol cars as far as fires go, proportionately. I mean, when you think about it, you've got a battery, which is supposed to be explosive and everything, and a petrol tank, for goodness sake. Electric cars in the United States, according to this insurance company, was 25 vehicles per 100,000. Think about that. That's 25 vehicles as opposed to 1,500 vehicles proportionately to petrol cars, and 3,400 from hybrids. In fact, in the whole year, there was a total of 52 vehicles, electric vehicle fires. Now, here's an important part. Nearly all, 99% of electric car fires are a result of a collision, not just sitting there and blowing up. In fact, I don't think there's been a recording of that. I think the other, yeah, that's right. The other one was where somebody poured petrol over the car and lit it during the night. So it was a vandalism thing. So that's it. I mean, they're very safe. And remember, the BYD batteries are even safer, and these statistics were a year ago, before the BYDs were not in the States. The other thing is, let's have a look at what causes fires in cars. So you've got oil leaks. Well, there's no oil leaks in electric cars. Smoking materials like lit cigarettes. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. This is dreadful. Poor maintenance of vehicle, well, fair enough. Overheated engines, oil or gas leaks, and collisions with other vehicles. So, you know, to say that electric vehicles are unsafe is wrong, because 52 out of every 100,000 vehicles sold is not very high when you compare it to the 3,400 hybrids. But to say they're not safe compared with petrol cars is just ludicrous. So I won't spend any more time on it. I said I wasn't going to waste your time on it, but here you go. So have a look at the video.
The popular electric vehicles, such as Tesla and BYD, are made in China and have bad workmanship. They will fall apart and rust in just a few years. Frankly, they are just crap. The better made ones from Japan and Europe are too expensive. In fact, even the crappy Chinese ones are very expensive.
Honestly, this was said to me. I mean, how do you say whether something's badly built or not badly built? So when it comes to the Chinese manufactured cars, well, probably the best example, the best information I can give you is people who are Tesla experts say that the vehicles coming out of China are 100 times better, or so many times better, than the ones coming out of the USA. And I've seen evidence of it where you get the older Teslas that came out of USA, and you look down the joins, where the two panels come together, and they're not parallel. They look at the Chinese, it's just no gap at all. I'm not a mechanical engineer or I'm a software engineer, so I don't have the qualifications to judge workmanship. But two things. Teslas coming out of China are much better than Teslas coming out of any other place. End of story. The Atto 3 that I've got is probably the best made vehicle from my point of view that I've seen. And I've had Mercedes and everything. Everything fits perfectly. It's not true. The second part of that was that electric vehicles are very expensive. Well, I wouldn't say that they're very expensive. They're probably about 10 grand more than the equivalent type of vehicle, in a petrol, maybe a bit less. Certainly after the rebates that you get, if you get the rebates, you know, say it's 10 grand. Frankly, I would pay 10 grand for the absolute pleasure in driving an electric car. They're quiet, they're smooth, they're just a joy to drive. And you know, even if it costs 10 grand, I don't care. It's worth it. You know, seeing a noisy, gear changing vehicle is it's worth 10 grand not to. I mean, if you haven't driven an electric car at all, and you're worried about the cost, hop in one and go for a drive. Honestly, you know, you'll be convinced. Well, as we saw, there was 5 reasons why not to buy an electric vehicle, none of which I agree with. If you agree with me, do a like. If you don't agree with me, put a comment down below and tell me where I'm wrong. And that's it from me on this video. Bye bye.